Hello everybody, I am Chris Woolley and I'm coming at you live from National Harbor, Maryland. We just wrapped up Imaging USA as part of PPA's educational conference, and holy cow, it was 3 action-packed days. Hopefully some of you were able to attend and join us, and if not, we've got some awesome education for you today. So with all sorts of craziness that's kind of happened with the conference going on, ACI was not actually at the conference, which is where we were planning on interviewing and doing some stuff with a bunch of these speakers. So we've got an interesting hybrid format for you today. I was able to meet up with some of the speakers that could make it to Imaging USA. We've got some video. Others from across the U.S. sent in video for us today. So that does mean that these are going to be recorded clips that we're looking at. So if you do have questions as we're going through with them, please put them into chat and I can be sure to pass them on to those speakers. Maybe we can get you some additional information on there. So make sure that we are communicating on that one because, well, we're here doing this for you. Everybody's been so generous with their time and talent, and we just want to make this industry even better. So I'm very, very excited for this power lineup because it is a ton of amazing information that's going to be coming at you. If this is your first time watching Let's Develop, welcome. I'm Chris Woolley, I'm your host, and let me kind of give you a crash course on what we're doing here. So this is a series of webinars brought to you by American Color Imaging. We reach out to some of the most amazing photographers and we just say, hey, let's share some information. And this is all for you guys, so if there's a topic or something that you want to know more about, please reach out to me. We're putting this on for you. And I do want to say thank you to American Color Imaging for putting on this webinar series and making it possible because they're kind of awesome. If you did miss our last one, the Magic and Composition with Mike Busby, be sure to check that out. That's on ACI's website, and you can see the address down there at the bottom, acilab.com/lets-develop, along with all the other webinars that we've done. So if you see one of the speakers that we've got on the webinar today, we've already had lots of them as guests on the program already. So be sure to check that out. And I am just so flippin' excited, and I hope you are too. Let me give you that long-awaited teaser of who's actually going to be here today and what we're learning. So we have a power lineup of ACI mentors. These are people that are super generous with their time and expertise. You might see them at your local conventions. So we've got Lisa Asp, Kimberly Oakley, Gary Box, Sherry and Dennis Hammon, Woody Walters, Charleen Larkwin, and Ella Carlson, all giving you some of their favorite tips and tricks that are coming through. I am just so excited. I hope you are just as excited about that as well. So we're going to jump right in with our very first guest, and it is Lisa Asp. And she's got information for you on doing pet photography. In fact, it's 5 tips and tricks every dog for every dog session to be successful. So with that, we are going to jump right in with Lisa.
Hi everyone, Lisa Asp here from Tangerine House of Design in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm coming to you today with 5 quick tips and tricks to help every dog session be successful. Now the first tip is going to be directed a little bit more towards studio photographers than on-location photographers. And that tip number 1 is to make sure that the dogs have a chance to go to the bathroom before they come into your studio. Obviously, if you're working on location, you're going to be outside and the dogs will be able to kind of take care of that pretty much whenever. But when you have dogs coming into your studio, you want to make sure that they have that chance before they come in so that they don't do that in your studio if at all possible. Now it's going to happen. That's just part of being a pet photographer, and it's okay if you're prepared for it. But I always have my clients show up a little bit early and have them walk around a little bit outside before they come in, just to make sure that their pet has a chance to relieve itself. Dogs that need to go to the bathroom during the session are going to be a little bit more uncomfortable, and you can tell that they're trying to hold it and they're just not focused completely because that's what they're thinking about. And I also, of course, want to avoid them going to the bathroom in the studio. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, if you need to use treats, use small, soft training treats. I learned years ago that using crunchy treats just don't really work, because when a dog chews on those treats, they're going to end up leaving crumbs all over the floor, and that just causes extra retouching later. So if you use a soft treat, that helps to avoid that problem. And also, large treats, they take longer for the dogs to eat, and they're going to get full a lot faster and won't work for food anymore. So soft treats, small treats are the way to go for training treats. Now, of course, anytime that you're going to have food, you got to make sure that it's okay with your clients that you give that particular treat to their dog. Most clients are going to be totally fine with it, but there are dogs that have allergies. So I always make sure that it's okay before I start giving a dog food. Number 3, tip number 3 for you guys is with collars. If you need to keep a dog on leash, which is okay to do during the session, if you're not comfortable with the dog being off leash, or you don't know body language at this point, it might be easier just to leave the dog on leash. So what you're going to do though with the collar, a lot of times the tags end up being in like right underneath the dog's chin or the front of the neck, and that's not real attractive in a photo. So if you've got somebody helping out with this, have them turn the collar completely backwards, and that way you see the nicer part of the collar. And also that's going to put the little clasp for the leash behind the head. If you can stretch that leash out from behind their head and hold on to it that way, it's going to make retouching the leash out so much easier later. And then you also don't end up with the tags right in front, which again can be retouched, but why do it if you can avoid it to start with? Okay, tip number 4 for you guys, variety in noisemakers. Dogs are a lot like toddlers, where they have a very short attention span, they get bored really quick, and they need a variety in order to keep their attention. So get lots of toys, have the owners bring them if you don't have them. You can toss things up in the air, you can whistle, you can make different noise, squeakers within the toys, knocking on the wall, all sorts of different things. Use your creativity. Sometimes you gotta just make just be embarrassed. It's okay to make an ass out of yourself a little bit, just to make goofy noises to get the dog's attention. It works. And you'll find out fast if it doesn't work, and then you just don't do that again. But variety is going to be key in getting their attention. One more thing, tip number 5, also has to do with variety, and that is in a variety of poses. Your bottom line is that you're in this to make money. This is your business, and you need to sustain that. And by offering a variety of different poses, it's going to give your clients lots of things to choose from, and hopefully order a little bit more as well. So get creative with your poses. Do some sitting, some standing, some lying on the floor. Use props, do some without props, close-ups, full length, over the shoulder. There are all sorts of different things you can do to give your clients a nice variety of images, so that you also give them lots of things to order. My goal is always to show my clients 40 different images, because I know from experience that they're usually going to cut that about in half and end up with about 20 of them that they love. And guess what? My albums are 20-page albums, 1 image per page, so 20 is a perfect amount for an album, and it makes it a lot easier to sell. Now, of course, not everybody orders an album, but they still have a lot of variety, and will usually get a nice variety of different things for their wall or smaller products. But when I give them things that they love and they can't narrow it down anymore, it makes my job a lot easier. So those are my 5 tips for you guys. I hope it helps. I hope you guys have great success in your dog photography sessions that are coming up. Also, make sure that you incorporate the family if at all possible, because guess what? They're going to order those for sure. So good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.
That was awesome. Thank you so very much, Lisa, for sharing those tips. If you like it or have questions for it, be sure to put in chat, and we can reach out to Lisa and try to get some answers for you. So up next, we've got Ella Carlson. She is going to be sharing some tips on using the pen tool in Photoshop and why it's super amazing, as well as some insight into her crazy creativity and how you can be creative as well.
Hello, my name's Ella Carlson. I'm from Littleton, Massachusetts. I'm the American Society of Photographers president at the moment. And I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about the pen tool. My area of expertise is Photoshop. I've been teaching Photoshop since 1999, and I still teach at the university level, as well as doing a lot of speaking around the country and judging for PPA. So one of the things I'm very passionate about my students learning is the pen tool. I think it's super important if you want to be on that extra level of creativity to be able to use the pen tool. And Adobe has made it quite easy for us lately because about 3 years ago, they upgraded the pen tool finally after years and years and years with the curvature pen tool. Much easier to use. So if you've been scarred in your previous life by trying to use the pen tool with all the wiggly handles, look at it again. Look at the curvature pen tool. The curvature pen tool is so much more user-friendly, so much more intuitive, and it allows you to do a lot of freehand drawing, quote unquote, because you're being assisted by all those lovely Bezier curves in making a lot of freehand and beautiful creative shapes. So I use it for defining the shape of an eye. I use it to put makeup on women who haven't worn the right makeup or haven't got on enough makeup. I prefer them to come in without very much at all, and I can add a little eyeliner or lipstick if I want. I use it to spot, dodge, and burn, because you can use any tool once you define the shape with the pen tool. I can use it to redefine the shape of a person's waist or their legs, and when you make a selection of somebody's arm, for instance, oftentimes that selected arm has a little bit of fuzziness because most of us have a little bit of hair growth on the arm, and that makes for a fuzzy kind of edge on the arm. You can smooth that right out with the pen tool. You don't have to use the whole ball of wax. You can use just the little pen segments, but it is the tool that has made me so much more flexible in what I do, as well as giving me that extra level of creative bump so that I can excel beyond what I would without it. I swear by it. It's one of my favorite tools, most precise selection tool in the whole Photoshop draw, even though it's really easy to click that select subject tool. This, if you want to redefine the shape of anything, the pen tool is your go-to tool. So I'm here to praise the pen tool, and I hope you'll join me in trying it out. Okay, one tip. I get asked all the time how I think about what I'm doing, how I come up with my creations. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about the fact that I'm not all that brilliant. My creations evolve. I don't sit there and try and think ahead 22 steps. I just take something like a texture, flip it maybe, match it side to side, mirror it, and then I look at it and see what comes of it. It's kind of like a Rorschach ink blot test, where you look at something and you see a shape, or you look at clouds and you see a shape and it reminds you of something in real life. Well, that's exactly what I'm doing, although then I'm taking the next step and going ahead and taking the shape, whatever I see, whether it's an eye shape or like maybe ears or a nose or something, and then I go in and enhance that, burn and dodge, pull it off with a separate layer, and make it into something that has more dimension and is more recognizable. So that's one of the things I would like my students and the people that I talk to understand is, don't give yourself such a high hurdle to start. Inch by inch your way up to the greatness, and don't be hard on yourself. I write as well as I do a lot of my own artwork, and one of the most valuable lessons I learned as a writer is writing is in the wrist. And what that means is, don't get into your head too much, just sit down and do it. It's the Nike commercial, just do it. So don't let yourself be stopped by your own thoughts. You are your own worst enemy oftentimes as an editor, and the most common problem I see when people are making their own artwork is they get absolutely frustrated with the way something looks at first, and they stop. But I swear, if you keep going, oftentimes you'll find a treasure in all that craziness that you started with. So think again, small steps. Don't give yourself too high a hurdle to start with, and inch by inch. My mother, who was really religious, used to say, well, I asked her as a little kid, God said you can move mountains, right? So how come I can't move a mountain? She said, you can. He didn't say you didn't have to do it spoon by spoon. So that's my advice for you, is think spoon by spoon, bit by bit, and you will get to the top of that mountain.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so very much, Ella, for sharing those tips and a little bit of perspective that came on there. So up next, we've got Charleen Larkwin that's going to be sharing some tips on how to improve your business and kind of keep things going. So let's take a peek at those.
Hi, I'm Charleen Larkwin of Charleen's Portrait Studio, located here in the quiet corner of Connecticut. Today, we're talking about keeping a healthy business in mind. So I want to share with you a countdown of 5 ways to keep a healthy business in mind. How to approach your business says a lot about who you are, and having a healthy business mindset can definitely change the way people view you and how confident your customers feel about working with you. So let's get started. Tip number 5. You know how sometimes you wake up in the morning and you're like thinking, I got a million things to get done. How am I going to do it all? And so much is already kind of like going through your mind. Well, we need to just get rid of a lot of these thoughts in order to concentrate on the task at hand and the day that you're going to accomplish. So honestly, grab yourself a notebook and a pen and get it out of your system. Simply write down anything that comes to mind. Spend about a half an hour or do 3 full pages of whatever you're thinking of. So if you're thinking, I don't know what to write. Well, guess what? You're writing, I don't know what to write. And as you're writing this, other things are just going to start coming up, and you're going to be able to just start flowing from your mind to your hand, into the pen, onto the paper. When you're done, you're going to feel pretty much relieved of all the things that you've just written down, because you've made them just kind of like disappear. And now you can start concentrating on the day at hand. So that was tip number 5, get it out of your system. Tip number 4, be in the moment. So often we allow distractions to take us away from our customers' attention. So I challenge you to make sure that wherever you're going or whatever you're doing, or if you have an appointment coming into the studio, that you're set up and ready, or that you're at the location 15 to 30 minutes prior to your customers arriving, making sure that your gear is set up, that you have an idea of what's going to happen. So that way, when they get to you and they open that studio door, you have already guided them right into the changing room, right into the action, and they don't feel like they're sitting around waiting and not knowing what to do. Same with if you're on location. The last thing your customers really want is to just watch you get your gear together. That's wasting their time. And, it doesn't really give you time to relax and take mental note of the area or where you're going to photograph if you're not there early enough before them. So arrive early, relax, be ready. So that way, when they're here, you can just spend your attention with them. And allow them to talk, allow them to share. Do not interject, and do not tell them about, something that doesn't relate to them at all. Let them share with you what they want to share. And then, if you have something that coincides with that, you can share with them that relates to what they're talking about, that's great. But most importantly, listen. Listen to them, be in the moment with them. Don't allow for distractions. And I promise you, your customers will notice. And it really does show that you care and you appreciate them. Step number 3, set your intentions. Where do you want to go? What is it that you want to achieve in this field? Or what is your end goal? So if you want to retire and maybe spend your winters on the beach, because I live in New England and it's not very warm up here right now. My goal is definitely to be able to spend my winters on the beach, put my daughter through college, achieve my artistry, merits. And that is some of my goals. So I write these down and I put them on a sticky note and I put them on my bathroom mirror. So that way, every morning when I wake up, I'm reading them. And every night before I go to bed, I'm reading them again. The great thing about doing something like this is subconsciously, your mind is going to start pushing you in the direction of where you want to be. Whether you know it or not, because you've read this, because you've set your intentions, your mind is going to help you fulfill your goals. So set your intentions, get them up on that mirror in the bathroom, and before you know it, you're going to be putting some new intentions up. Step number 2, automation. If you are constantly doing something that you either dread or you don't do well, you need to automate it, whether it's outsourcing it or creating it for a customer. When I say creating it for a customer, I mean the fact that you're asked the same questions again and again. Or maybe, you're constantly being asked, how do you order something online if you're doing an online gallery? So what I do for my customers is I create videos, much like this one that you're seeing here right now. I'll create a video for my customers and they'll be able to just click on it, watch me go through the steps. Granted, I'm not giving them my face. I'm usually sharing my screen and guiding them through and explaining to them how to find and how to place an order. So people are very visual. I know this. I'm one of them. And I know that just reading directions, a lot of people don't do it. They'd rather pick up the phone and have you do it for them. Or they'd like to watch a video explaining it step by step, so that way they can pause it and follow along. So automate whatever you can to make it easier for your customers and to make it easier on you. That way you're answering the question before it even can happen. And the last tip that I have for you, tip number 1, is make someone's day. I love to make someone's day, whether it's just holding a door, letting them know that they look great, or, oh my goodness, this is your first time coming to this studio. Let's try something different. Let them know how special they are in some way or in some manner. I actually just experienced this not too long ago. I was at my favorite hot wiener place, which isn't actually... This happens every so often. I just mess up my words completely, but this is one take and we're going for it. So I was at New York Hot Wiener System. It's in Oneyville, Rhode Island. And these 2 young boys walk in and they're counting their money and they ask, how much is it for a hot wiener? And the guy let him know the price and they both ordered one. They went and sat at a booth. Before they received the food, evidently there was a gentleman at the counter who ordered them both 2 and soft drinks, along with a nice big large fry, and left before they were delivered to them. He made their day. He paid for their lunch and he upgraded them. These 2 boys were so excited. They couldn't be more than 15 years old. And they were just amazed that somebody would do that for them. So make someone's day, whether it's picking up the phone and letting them know, that you were thinking of them. Maybe you haven't seen them in a while, or complimenting them on their outfit or their achievements. It is so important to compliment people on their achievements. I know it's tough. Sometimes you kind of feel like, oh, I wish I could have done that. But the fact is they did. And they deserve to be recognized for it. And they deserve that beautiful pat on the back, because someday when you're there, when you're receiving that achievement, they're going to be patting you on the back right back. So those are my 5 tips. I'm Charleen Larkwin of Charleen's Portrait Studio, and I want to thank you so much for listening to this entire little broadcast I did for you. Have a great time at Imaging USA. I wish I was there with you, but guess what? I will see you in Tennessee. Take care, everybody.
Oh, that was fantastic. Thank you so very, very much, Charleen. And she is joining us live in chat too. So if you do have a comment for her, be sure to put it into chat so that she can read it live and maybe answer a question or 2 if you have them. We're going to jump in with our next presenter, Woody Walters, who's going to be sharing information on conceptual photography. So up next, Woody Walters.
Hi, everybody. I'm Woody Walters, and we're here in Washington, D.C. at the big convention, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about conceptual photography. Now, what do I mean by that? In conceptual photography, when you ask me, it's the act of visualization. And you got to step back, and so I'm going to step back a little bit. What's the act of visualization? Well, when you come upon an image, it's not just seeing the pretty waterfall in the Rocky Mountains, and slowing down the shutter speed or getting low. It's the act of what you see and how you want to perform what you're seeing to your viewer. And that takes emotion. You know, anybody can learn in today's cameras and today's technology, exactly. Anybody can learn the mathematical skills that goes with photography. It's just, you know, you either double it or you cut it in half in photography. But the technology that's into it is getting so advanced that the distance between an amateur and a professional is getting more and more compressed. And so really it's the act of visualization, what the photographer brings to the table in order to see and clarify an image. So when I come upon an image, what do I want to do? Well, let's just take a landscape, for instance. When I come up, or let's take Ansel Adams, when he came up onto a landscape, he would look at that landscape, or I would look at that landscape, and you stop and you ask yourself, wow, what do I see here that I want to portray to my viewers? How do I want to see this? And let's take a mountain, for instance. Well, with a mountain, you might want to photograph it in direct sunlight. If it has snow on top of the mountains, you might want to use the number 25 red filter. If we're doing black and white, to really darken down the blue skies and really pop out the snow on top of the mountains. If it's like in Yosemite, where the mountains are granite instead of red clay like it is in Tetons, the Grand Tetons, you know, you can really expose those granite to like the lower zones, zones 3 and zone 4, to make them very dark, and then that white snow popping out, you know, like it's almost like my t-shirt. It has detail in it, but you have that white snow caressing the top of that black granite rock, and it just really separates itself and makes a very strong statement. Now with a mountain, you're going to want strong light, you're going to want direct light, because the mountain is strong, it's rigid, it's tough. But let's say now you got a waterfall and you're exposing that waterfall for a 30-second exposure, and then that waterfall comes down across the rocks, and you have the greenish and the foliage of, let's say, spring or fall, you know, happening. There you might want to start brightening up your image, you know, so you have that nice flow of that water where it looks like it's airbrush, but then you got the softness of the light. You don't have that direct light. You have diffused light coming down upon it. And so it's really, you know, it's all about visualization. I don't care if you're shooting straightforward photography or if you're doing composite, you know. Composites are really neat now because we can photograph the people, and then we can put them in scenes or create backgrounds or create, you know, fighting type scenes or these big elaborate setups where, you know, I did one image, it's called The Warrior, and I took this bodybuilder and I had him coming down with an axe coming down, and then I took all these other, you know, people that my assistants, basically I had 3 assistants and they stand for probably about 18 people, and it's all 3 the same people, but I had them like wilting and falling down, you know, and holding their hands and getting ready to be killed by this, you know, main warrior type of thing. And so you do that by piece, and it's really kind of neat because you can put your main element in, and then you can start doing your secondary, your thirds, your fourths, your fifths, you know, all these different elements to bring the whole concept of the total image together. And then once you get that built, and I built this upon a triangle where you had the main barbarian here and he's killing all these people down here going off in a triangle, and then the background was lightning, and then this castle in the background with all these clouds and so on and so forth. And so, you know, we as photographers now, with digital the way it is, we're only limited by our own imagination, and it's in that imagination that we can either reach out and capture, you know, our viewers and hold them within, and then you combine that with composition, with color theory, with lighting theory, and all that together, and you bring all those elements in, and my gosh, it's just a great recipe to bring and build upon an image. But when I say that, and when you're doing conceptuals, the more ingredients you bring into it, the more careful you have to be to not overspice it. It's kind of like cooking, you know. You can't put too much pepper in, or it's going to be spicy. If you don't put enough in, it won't be spicy enough. And so it's a combination, but you got to feel that in what you're doing and what you're trying to perform. And so I think that's the bottom line, but I think it all comes down to is what you see in your mind's eye and being able to know your craft well enough in your technique to bring that vision forward into the viewer. And so I'm Woody Walters, and I want to thank you for this brief time just to let me express a little bit about how I approach photography and my imaging. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Woody. That was certainly entertaining to watch, huh? Woody cracks me up every time. He's got such great information, and he's so generous with sharing it. So my friend on the West Coast, Kimberly Oakley, is going to be sharing information on masking in Lightroom. This was a recent addition to Lightroom, and it is a game changer. And she was generous enough to create this video and send it in, so we've got it. And she's joining us on the call today. So if you do have questions, put them into chat. Kimberly?
Hi, I'm Kimberly, and I wanted to show you a few tips and tricks for making and refining your selections inside of Lightroom Classic. So here is a portrait I did this last weekend at a bat mitzvah. I'm pretty happy with the results at this point, but I wanted to show you how to mask to do some additional changes to this image. So if you haven't used masking in Lightroom, some significant changes were added just a few months ago in the fall of 2021. Use this button here to the right, and it brings up a listing of your layers of masks. As you can see, I already have 2. I brightened her face a little bit, enhanced her eyes, but I want to just make a couple more changes here. So first I'm going to create a new mask and select the subject. If you haven't tried selecting subject or sky with the AI technology that Adobe added, they do an amazing job. I am pretty impressed, and you should check it out. So as you can see here, good selection of the girl with the Torah. A little off on one of the crowns, but yeah, I have to say, this is a very powerful tool. But what if I don't want to make this adjustment to the entire subject? What I can do here, they did give you options for doing additional refinements. I can add and include additional things here. Like I'll do one right now. I will add with a brush to the other crown. There's how you add. If you want, you can also subtract. I'll choose a brush again for simplicity and take away a little bit over here in the corner that it went outside of my subject. Okay, well, what if I want to do additional refinements? Let's say I just want to tone down the right side of this image of the subject only with the white sweater and the edge of her face. I just want to reduce the brightness there. This is where I would use the intersect mask with. And that means I'm doing an additional mask, but only inside of this selection. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to pick the linear gradient, and I'm going to choose just the edge of her here. As you can see, the gradient is pulling across, the linear gradient is pulling across only the subject that was already selected. So that's pretty good right there. And I'm going to maybe reduce the exposure and the highlights on that so you can see. If you use the eyeball tool up here in the layer, you can turn on and off your masking to see what your adjustments look like before and after. You can even turn off individual pieces of your selection. So that's one way that I do refinement on my selections. Another way is when I want to change the background. Now, there isn't a select background, but essentially there is, because you can select subject, which we already did. I could have also copied from the previous layer before I did the refinement, but here's my subject. Now I can click in the upper right-hand corner, the invert toggle right there, or I can also use the 3 dots to say invert. You will notice the invert option does not show up on the top layer of the mask. Here, I see intersect, I don't see invert. But if you click on it, you go to the subject sublayer, you can say invert. And there is the background selected. Once again, I can add or subtract from this or intersect with it. But for this image, I'm going to turn off my overlay now that I know the selection is what I want, so I can see the adjustments being made in real time. Let's see, reduce the exposure a little, maybe drop the saturation a little so she really pops, because that background's competing with all the details in her dress and the Torah. So now I think that just took my image up to the next level. So if you haven't tried using intersect and invert inside of the masking options, have fun with it. It's very powerful. And in Lightroom CC, you will not see the intersect with. It is in Lightroom Classic, but essentially it is the same as doing a subtract and invert. So if you use Lightroom CC, play with doing subtract and invert to have the same thing happen. Hope this was helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Kimberly, for that. Seriously, learn that tool. You're going to start loving to use it. It's going to save your bacon. So thank you. Be sure to show Kimberly some love in the comments here because she is here with us and she's a huge ACI fan and supporter of this show as well. And be sure to check out her other episode that we did as well because that's definitely worth checking out. All right, up next, we've got Dennis and Sherry Hammon. They're going to be giving us some information on using color checkers and the importance of color checkers in your work.
Hi, I'm Dennis Hammon. I'm a master photographer from Idaho Falls, Idaho.
Sherry Hammon, master photographer from Idaho Falls as well.
Hey, we're here to talk today. You know, when we're out doing sessions, you can have great lighting, great posing, a great location. But one of the problems is I see a lot is that people's color balance is off a lot. And you know, to help out with the labs, and I'm sure ACI lab would really love to have this, we use a Macbeth checker. Now you can use the passports. We use this big one because I'm old. I like the big things. So when we go and do a session, because your light, when we're changing locations, your light changes a lot from one place to the shade, the color, the tonalities. And so when we go to every time we change locations, even when we got lighting with us, we always come up and I go up to Sherry I have a whole series of Sherry making faces with me, but we come up and we do a series of shots. And then after we do the shots, we meter the situation, take 1 or 2 shots, come back and we're done. So once we do that, then we take it back into the lab and then we process images raw and then Sherry takes them and she works on them.
What I will do when we're out shooting is we will do this with every different lighting situation. Sometimes we're going to be in the sun, sometimes we're going to be in the shade. So the color is going to be a little different. So we do one of these for every single lighting situation. If the sun goes behind a cloud, that's another one. So when I bring these into the raw processing, I will select this along with every image that was shot in that series and then just do a click balance. And I'm generally using either this one or this one for color balancing. And that's going to take it to neutral. And then you can warm it up or cool it to your liking and what's appropriate for your image.
People ask, why do we do this? Because a lot of times we go and we have sessions, sometimes we have families we have to do and put images together in their companion series of shots, and they're maybe a week apart or even days apart. But when we do this with every session, then when we go in and balance them out, every shot, when we do the composites, we do the groupings, everything looks exactly the same without different color variations. Because quite frequently we go into homes and people will into other photographers and they'll have a green, a red, it'll be blue, it'll be all different colors, and we come in and one of the things we hear all the time is that, wow, your images are so consistent in tone and color all the time. And it's because we go that extra step in making sure that everything is balanced out to the right color and making sure that we're working for the client and making sure it's going to hang on their home properly.
Another place this is really helpful is we do a lot of environmental portraits, so often we are surrounded by greenery, and especially if we're shooting in forests and that type of situation. There's a lot of light filtering through green leaves, so we're going to get a green cast on everything. And using this as our color checker balance point, we're very easily able to neutralize that green cast.
It's all about consistency, making sure that you have everything at the same time, everything looking good every time you do a session from one session to the next session. And this is one of the things, whether this one or use the little miniature passports, but some kind of color chart to make sure your images are balanced out and neutralized and keep that same great color tone to keep this consistency for you in your work and your clients. And the labs are going to love you when you do all this. Everybody wonders how we keep the consistency in our lighting and our color, and so we use the neutralizing with a little gray chart. You can get the flip ups like this that work out, the color chart like from Macbeth. You can get the little passport, and they are very beneficial to make sure that you have your colors always neutralized and maximizing for the most benefit. Sherry?
And when I bring all these into ACR in Photoshop, it works the same way in Lightroom. I will bring this chart in with every image from that series and then just do a click balance on these. And while I'm still in ACR, once I have them neutral, I'm going to warm them up to how we like our portraits or whatever it is that we're shooting to look.
The white balance I keep my camera is 56K, but we're shooting raw all the time, so we're shooting raw, but that's the benefits of shooting raw. We can change it around, and so we keep it 56K, but she still balances it out with in the Photoshop ACR.
Thank you, Dennis and Sherry, for that information. I love color checkers. I personally use the Passport color checker, which is a small, kind of wallet-sized one. So you've got your gray card here that we can look at, as well as on the opposite side, the color one that's on here. So it's got all sorts of fun, useful things, as well as being able to adjust for like being in the shade or sun, so you kind of warm up or cool down. Amazing tool. I also stick a piece of spike tape on mine with some neon yellow, just so that when I set it down and I can't see it, the yellow pops out for it. Don't want to lose that one. Okay, so up next, we've got our last presenter for the evening, and followed by some cool ACI giveaways, as well as a special for you. But Gary Box is going to be presenting on boomerang senior sales. So a really, really clever way of increasing your senior sales average. So let's check that out.
Hi, I'm Gary Box. My studio is in Sapulpa, Oklahoma, just outside of Tulsa. I've been a professional photographer for 33 years, quite a while, and seen a lot of change in our industry over the year. So the thing I wanted to share with you guys today is a concept that is very successful in my high school senior sales called boomerangs. Now, I always ask people what happens when you throw a boomerang, and they simply state, it comes back, which is exactly right. My seniors are able to come back throughout the year for little add-on mini sessions. And whenever we do our studio tour, we don't do consultations, we do tours because that sounds so much more fun. We tell them that we can actually put their book on hold and they can do these boomerang sessions throughout the year, so your senior album can actually cover your entire senior year, which is a great concept. And so initially we do our main session first, and this is typically where most of our wall art and a lot of our print sales come from, and we build the base of our album. So they are going to get their wall art right away, their gift prints, and they will get, I only do low-res digitals, I'm not a digital photographer. They will get the low-res digitals of all the images that they select for their album at that time, and we simply put their album on hold. I sell exclusively the ACI Ravelli album line, which are amazing. So these albums will sit on hold. Right now for this year, I literally have a stack of albums on hold about this tall in orders. Now, throughout the year, they can come back for these boomerang sessions, which are short 30-minute, 2-outfit mini sessions. They can come back in the fall if they did their main session in the summer. They can come back during winter. We don't get a lot of snow in Oklahoma, so we take a snow list. Anybody that's interested in snow, if we're going to get a good snow, I'm calling, going, it's going to snow tomorrow, who is in? They can come in and they can do a snow session. They can do spring sports. They can do prom dress. They can do cap and gown towards the end of the year. And then we keep adding these into their album as we go. Each follow-up boomerang session will have a small little mini ordering session following it where they add on whatever else. Sometimes they'll buy additional wall art from a boomerang, but honestly, the main primary focus is to continue adding into their album and growing their senior album. Now, this has been really instrumental in our sales. I charge my album by the images above a small baseline. And so if they come back and they order 8 more images, that's going to be 8 more images at $50 each, $400. Now, during my slow time of year, 30-minute, $400, $500 order, I'm okay with that. So they come back and they keep adding on. My top album last year, just the album, was over $4,000. It had 80 images in it. And the mother probably doesn't even know what she actually spent on that album. At her initial order, they ordered about $2,000 to go into her album, and then it sat on hold. She actually came back 4 times and did boomerangs. Each boomerang was about $500. So she ends up with a $4,000 Ravelli album. We had so many spreads, we had to reduce to the thinner pages to fit them all in the book. I almost always do thick pages, but we exceeded the 26 spread limit on that. So the boomerang concept is a great way of increasing my sales throughout the year and spreading some of that sales out into what is normally a slower time of year for me. So it increases my cash flow the entire year round. I'm not swamped busy during the summer and the fall and then completely dead in the spring like many senior photographers are. So I'm still getting continuous money coming in during that slow time through these small little mini sessions. So it's a great concept to be able to utilize and grow your senior orders. And I actually use it as a strong selling point of your senior album can cover your entire senior year. So it's a great concept that I want to be able to share with you guys. And hopefully this is something you can take and grow. Just think about it. If you could add $400, $500 to every one of your senior orders, would it make a difference? It certainly will in my case. So this is just one piece of how we bring in, my current senior average is over $4,000 per high school senior. And that's just one piece of that. In addition to that, multiple wall art pieces is a staple. My expectation for a senior is that you will buy at least 3 pieces of wall art and a custom album. That's my baseline order for every senior. And everything that I do is aimed at those goals. How I price, how I shoot, how I sell, how all my studio displays are all aimed at that end goal of 3 wall portraits and a custom album. So this is the key and the base of our senior orders. So I hope that helps some of you make more money at what we do.
Thank you, Gary, for that information. If you did enjoy that, he was also our very, very first guest on this show with marketing tips for photographers. So you can go to ACI's website under the Let's Develop tab and check out that replay. Definitely worth watching. So thank you so much to our ACI mentors for sharing their information. Remember that these people are very, very generous and willing to come and able to come to some of your states and affiliates and put on local programs too. So if you are interested in them, talk to your local affiliates and have them bring them out. I know that they love to share information because that's just the type of people that they are. So we've got some fun giveaways and specials and stuff to do as we wrap up our evening. So this is ACI's current special. It's kind of a tiered system here. So it's valid through February 2nd. And you can see on here you can get $10 off a $50 purchase, $25 off a $100 purchase, $75 off a $250 purchase, and $200 off of a $500 purchase. So there is a little bit of fine print, can't be combined with other offers, and can't use it on the acrylics or Art and Magic in Light offers. But be sure to jot that down. I'm also going to send it to you via the follow-up email after this. But that's a crazy good deal, so make sure that you're paying attention to that one and taking advantage of it. Okay, so now it's time for some of the giveaways because everybody loves that, right? And I got a call from ACI's marketing director that says, you know what, for this episode, instead of doing our normal tiered giveaways, we're going to give away 3 $100 gift certificates to ACI. So 3 $100, so everybody's a grand prize winner on this one, right? So let's look at that. We've got a $100 lab credit coming up. And so let's take a peek and see who our winner is going to be on that. A lot of names on this one. Hey, congratulations, Tim Burns. You are our first winner for that. So congratulations. So up next, we've got, what? A $100 lab credit that's going. So let's go back to our wheel and check that one out. And it's Andrea. You didn't have a last name, so if the PHOX is part of your email address, you are the winner, because we had multiple Andreas that are on the call today. And now we've got our final $100 lab credit. But before we get to that one, I do want to let you know that our next episode is coming up on February 2nd. It's Headshots, a process-driven approach with Mike Price. He is a crazy smart guy, and he's going to be showing you how you can make your headshot business super, super efficient on there. So you're definitely going to want to check that one out. And if you do have ideas for future episodes, please make sure to email me or contact me, find me on Facebook, something. Let me know what you want to learn about. But at Imaging this year, we did get some crazy cool people on board for future episodes this season. I'm really, really excited to share that. So let's end our episode with the final winner of the $100 lab credit. And it is Tammy Noble. All right, thank you so very much, everybody, for joining me and your patience with little technical glitches that we have here. Just a reminder, there is going to be a replay available next week. I'm going to make sure that we have our glitch-free videos up there so that you can enjoy it without all that frustration coming through. As always, it's been a pleasure working with you today, and if you do have ideas or feedback or anything like that, please reach out to me. This is all about you. That's why we're doing this. So I want to know, I want to learn just like you, and we're all in this together. So thank you so very much, everybody, and have a great evening.